So Donald Trump is a convicted felon. It's official, or to use the British term, he is a convicted criminal. That isn't a smear. That isn't speculative. It's actually de facto, a de facto situation. He is now a convicted felon. I'm going to just read out the Times report on this, the main piece that is. Um, but a disclosure before I start into that. I've never hidden my deep dislike of Donald Trump. I think he is a toxic character. I think he was an appalling president, absolutely one of the worst. And I'm not just talking modern times, I mean ever. I think Trump's done things that no other president has. His contempt for the democratic process, his narcissism, his um, destabilizing approach to foreign policy in the sense of being utterly unreliable. There's so many flaws with this man that it's I still find it incredible he got into the White House in the first place, but he did. Um, anyway, that's my disclosure. I do not like Donald Trump. I didn't like him before he ran for president. I didn't like that whole reality TV hard ass boss thing, taking pride from firing people. I've never liked Donald Trump. But when he became president, I went, I sort of looked at it with an open mind. I thought, well, he might do some good things. And, amidst all the rot, amidst all the toxicity that comes from Donald Trump, there were a few things that deserve credit. He did make some diplomatic efforts in the Middle East between Israel and its neighbors. That certainly is, in difficulty now. I wouldn't blame Trump for that. Um, there were some things that he got hotly condemned for, which I don't think he was entirely wrong about. He was right to point out the threat from Islamic extremism. However, his coziness with Saudi Arabia somewhat contradicted that. And he was right to say that there was a problem on the southern border. I think that's one thing that is going to be a big headache for Joe Biden. Um, Also, it goes without saying that Trump is anti woke, and there is a big contingent of American conservatives and probably American moderates who do not like the intolerance of woke ideology. Trump tapped into this, albeit in a divisive way. He is a divisive figure himself, but he's not entirely wrong about some of the excesses of the left. So, those are areas where Trump would, he's not wrong about that. Um, He's also not wrong about China. Trump was quite hawkish with China. He wasn't wrong about that. Russia, on the other hand, pathetically weak. Trump, denigrates Western allies whilst he, if not outright praising Putin, he certainly is reluctant to condemn him. I know what the argument is that, don't broadcast what you're going to do to your adversaries, but there's a difference between that and openly attacking NATO allies and basically telling Russia do whatever the hell you like. Now, British conservatives have actually support Trump on this and said, well, yes, NATO countries need to pull the weight. But this isn't a country club, and it isn't whatever Trump thinks of that. There's ways to go about it. Telling the Russian thug regime to do whatever the hell it wants, I find repulsive. On the day of the invasion of Ukraine, that man said it was a genius move by Putin. I think Trump is a disgrace. But I don't just disagree. I don't just say every single thing Trump has done is bad. I'm not that sort of never Trumper. But I do think he's a toxic character. I think some of his domestic positions have been a disgrace. He has utterly failed to do anything on America's endemic problem of gun violence. At least Biden has tried. Um, and for all his snipes at Biden's age, Trump himself isn't exactly mentally that acute. There's been more than one occasion where his age is showed. Bear in mind, he's only 4 years younger than Trump, than Biden. And another thing, I'm not overly enthusiastic with Biden. I'm trying to get a fly out of my coffee here. I think it was a big mistake for the Democrats to renominate him. Yes, he has foreign policy experience, but unfortunately, Biden's age is a factor. I think had the Democrats went for a younger candidate, of course Trump would be on the attack, but I think it would actually be harder to attack them because there'd be hidden qualities there. Um, anyway, without further ado, I'm just going to read out the Times report. I'll say this before I start. How much difference is it going to make? I think with Trump's hardcore supporters, it won't make an ounce of difference. Um, it may make a slight sway towards less hardcore Republicans, less hardcore Trump supporters. But American voting habits are not easy to predict. Um, and the interesting thing is the founding fathers had a stipulation for running for president to be American born, to have lived in the US for at least 14 years, and to be at least 35 years of age. That was it. You know, there was nothing that said a convicted felon couldn't run for president. But I will say, if Trump gets back into the White House, I do think this has implications for America's image in the world. Anyway, this is the report by Will Pavia in New York City. Donald Trump has been convicted of fraud by a New York jury that declared him guilty of 34 charges of falsifying business records to conceal a payment made to a porn star during his tumultuous 2016 campaign for the White House. The verdict made him the first former president in American history to be convicted in a criminal court. It came in the midst of a presidential campaign, sometimes conducted in a gloomy courthouse corridor, in which Trump 77 could be returned to the White House months after a jury has decided whether or not to send him to jail. Opinion polls have suggested that a criminal conviction um, could put off some voters, but many political strategists astonished by Trump's ability to turn to turn court appearances into campaign events, doubt whether it will have any effect in November. The counts carry a possible penalty of up to 4 years in prison, though in view of Trump's age and his lack of previous convictions, also the fact he's a non-violent offender, that's my input. Um, excuse me, it's also written here. And given that he is considered a non-violent offender, he is likely to be spared incarceration by Judge Juan Merchan. Any sentence is expected to be pending an appeal, which could take a year, so that'll go well beyond the election cycle. If Trump becomes president in that time, he could not pardon himself, as a verdict was reached in a state rather than the federal court. But the office would shield him from any prison sentence. A Justice Department memorandum holds that a president should not be incarcerated, as he or she may struggle to fulfill all their duties, let alone serve as leader of the free world from a prison cell. It would obviously be very unpractical. I mean, he could never visit foreign heads of state, do state visits and so on. Trump is now expected to be interviewed by probation officers who will compose a pre-sentencing report for the judge on his mental health and personal history and the circumstances at the time he committed the offences. At the time, according to prosecutors, he was in the Oval Office of the White House. His conviction comes after a trial that ran for 2.5 months in Lower Manhattan, drawing a host of larger-than-life characters to the park outside the courthouse and to the witness stand. David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer, described a secret agreement in 2015 to aid Trump's campaign for the presidency, in which his company would buy up negative stories about the candidate, particularly involving women, to stop them from being published. Pecker said the publishing company he led, AMI, paid $150,000 in 2016 for the story of a former Playboy model named Karen McDougal, who claimed to have had an affair with Trump, to take it off the market. Trump did not reimburse him, and when he learned that an adult film star named Stormy Daniels was also preparing to speak publicly about an affair, he declined to buy it and instead tipped off Trump's lawyer Michael Cohen to allow him to come to an arrangement with her, Pecker said. The story Cohen paid $130,000 to keep quiet was told in vivid detail by Daniels, 45, on the witness stand. She had met Trump in 2006 during a celebratory golf tournament where her adult film company was sponsoring a hole. Yes, I know that's very funny, she said. She said Donald Trump's bodyguard, Keith Schiller, asked if she fancied having dinner with his boss at the hotel, and she went on the advice of her publicist, who asked what could possibly go wrong. Daniels said that after chatting with Trump and excusing herself to visit the lavatory in the bathroom, she emerged to find it in a shirt and boxer shorts, sprawled on the bed, where she eventually found herself too. Under cross-examination, she stressed that she was not forced. I blame myself, she said. She also knocked back suggestions that as a porn star she frequently made up stories about sex for money. The sex in the films is very much real, she replied, just like what happened to me in that room. The chosen jury, 7 men and 5 women, included 2 lawyers, several tech workers, a young teacher from Harlem, and an investment banker. Judge Merkin went so far as to assure jurors before they began the deliberations that a guilty verdict did not necessarily entail prison time for the former president. That's the report I was reading from. A few things to say here. You could be absolutely sure the Trump campaign is going to frame this as the deep state, out to persecute Trump. Hardcore Trump supporters will see it that way, and I don't put them past violence if shown they're capable of that before. So I don't think this makes any difference to hardcore Trump supporters. It may sway some floating former Trump voters or former Republicans, not necessarily to Biden. They may just abstain and not vote at all. The American system's a bit different from ours in terms of how the party system works. Um, I don't think it'll hurt Trump that much, and that is in itself quite an indictment of the way American politics is right now. That someone like Donald Trump, a convicted criminal, can in theory run for president, win the presidency, and that's it. Now, certainly Donald Trump won't be the only controversial character to assume office. He was controversial in 2016. And in other countries, there's been criminals, as far as I know, that have indeed got into higher office. Um, there's many controversial figures around the world, but this is the United States of America we're talking about. Um, if it wasn't already, this has seriously damaged America's image in the world, and it will make it hard for the US State Department to lecture other countries, especially regarding anything to do with criminality. Um, and bear in mind, this is just one of many cases that Trump has faced. This isn't even looking into all those documents in Mar-a-Lago. It's not looking into the very serious allegations of election interference, ties to Russia, what he done with the Georgia Attorney General, I believe it was, during the 2020 election. Um, I think Trump is rotten with corruption, absolutely rotten. And I do think that the support around Trump is something like a cult because, and the one thing about Biden, say what you want about him, but there is no cult around Joe Biden. There's support for him. It's not overly enthusiastic. It's there, but there's no personality cult around Joe Biden. Um, with Donald Trump, these are people who, Trump could murder someone in front of them, and they would still say it's a deep state conspiracy. I think that's deeply troubling. Um, one thing I feel strongly about with American society. And the reason I feel strongly is because my own niece and nephews were involved in a shooting incident. Thankfully, it wasn't fatal, but it could have been. It is the gun issue. And, Trump was pandering to the NRA recently. His record on gun violence is a disgrace, pathetic, weak, useless. Um, and of course, he's stirring up the lies about gun grabbing and all the rest of it. Um, there's a lot of uncertain territory if Trump gets back in, certainly regarding Ukraine, certainly regarding what sort of approach he'll take to Putin. Um, I think, David Lammy, as Shadow Foreign Secretary, has said that we'll work with Trump, but I think working with him is one thing. It doesn't mean we need to roll out the red carpet. And I don't think we should. I don't think we should pander to this man. Um, we can't just cut off relations with the United States, one of our oldest allies and one of our chief allies, but I certainly don't think we should pander to Donald Trump just because of the office he may well hold. Um, because we haven't done it with every president. Why should Donald Trump get special treatment? But there's another point about all of this, those who get into the deep state conspiracy theories. Why the hell should Donald Trump be above the law? He was tried by a jury of his peers. He was not tried by Joe Biden or Biden's cabinet. And yes, they'll say it was a Democrat, appointed judge, but this was a jury of his peers, and you could be absolutely sure that those people would have been vetted and vetted and vetted again. Any of them that were staunchly pro-Biden or anti-Trump wouldn't have been selected. So, of course, the Trump campaign is going to play the victim, but it's astonishing. But then again, there's a lot of astonishing things that have come from Donald Trump in recent years. I I think the man is morally bankrupt. I think and I think he will. Incidentally, if he gets back into the White House, he'll be the only president that has done that, except for Grover Cleveland, who's the only other president to have had a non-consecutive term. Um, Paradoxically, Grover Cleveland is the only president to have acted as a hangman. Interestingly, so Trump's the only criminal, convicted criminal, and Grover Cleveland is the only uh, executioner to have ran for president successfully. That's it. One more thing. I know that Trump's team are trying to discredit Mr. Cohen. Well, the irony of that is Cohen. Yes, Cohen's being a pretty unsavory character himself. But the thing is, his lies were in the service of Donald Trump. So whatever way you gloss this over, I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy for people who served Donald Trump and are now acting as kind of whistleblowers. Why the hell did they serve him in the first place? I don't have much time for people like that, but I don't trust any of them. But I think Trump is corrupt as hell. Um, and this is unprecedented, so it is a big story. But will it make any difference to the election? I don't know. I don't know. The danger, of course, is if Biden wins, then the Trump people could once again resort to violence as they did in 2021. Wrap this up. Let me know your thoughts.